The more you explain, the weaker you appear. The more you react, the more control you surrender. And the harder you try to prove your worth, the more obvious it becomes that someone got under your skin. Let's be honest. In a world overflowing with noise, silence is no longer passivity, it's strategy. When your words are twisted, when the truth becomes a weapon, when your reaction becomes their entertainment, this isn't communication anymore. It's a psychological battleground. And the louder you shout, the more it looks like you've already lost. But here's the twist. You don't need to fight. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to explain yourself to be right. You only need two things, silence and time. Because the moment you step back, karma steps in. You go quiet, but the universe doesn't. Truth has gravity. It always finds its way home. In this video, we'll uncover 7 moments where silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Not to retreat, but to protect your energy. Not to submit, but to preserve your dignity. And not to punish, but to let their own actions crush them. Because silence is not the absence of speech. It is the presence of self-control. Stay with me until the final chapter, because the last one will permanently change the way you see silence. Chapter 1. When they lie about you. Few things sting like being lied about. The instinct is instant. You want to correct the narrative, prove them wrong, clear your name. But here's a truth no one wants to hear. The more you explain, the guiltier you appear. The more you seek clarity, the more confusion they create. Because liars aren't searching for truth. They're fishing for a reaction. They want to see you squirm, to perform your innocence so they can twist it into proof of guilt. And the moment you engage, you've already lost. This is where Stoicism draws its line. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it." That's it. No defending, no pleading. You live by your integrity, not their accusations. Because the truth doesn't need your defense. It just needs time. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, we'll call him James, accused at work of something he didn't do. Whispers spread. People distanced themselves. His first impulse? Fight back. But instead, he stayed calm. He stayed silent. He just kept working. Weeks later, the truth emerged. The accuser exposed for years of manipulation. And James? He never raised his voice, never lost his dignity. He rose above it all, untouched. That is Stoic strength. So when they lie about you, trust the long game. Falsehoods are loud but short-lived. Truth endures. Anchor yourself in your values. When you know who you are, noise can't move you. Let karma speak for you. Liars eventually tie themselves into knots. Silence is not weakness. It is self-respect. You're not hiding. You're rising. Above the lies. Above the noise. Above the need to prove anything. Let them talk, while the truth walks. Chapter 2. When you've been betrayed. Betrayal doesn't just break trust, it shifts the ground beneath you. It comes from those closest to your heart, friends, partners, family. And when it hits, it knocks the wind out of your soul. The impulse is to confront, to scream, "How could you?" To demand closure, to plead for understanding. But here's the harsh truth. People who betray you have already made peace with what they did. They've either convinced themselves they were right, or worse, they simply don't care. The more you seek answers, the more you reopen your own wound. Because what they truly want is not resolution, it's your energy, your pain, your confusion. That gives them power. That confirms they mattered. So what happens when you give them nothing? No rage, no revenge, just silence. That's when they realize they didn't just lose your voice. They lost access to your soul. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Betrayal is that friction. It reveals. It refines. It removes the unworthy. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, Sarah. She shared everything with her best friend for over a decade. Dreams, doubts, victories. Then came the betrayal. Her friend exposed her secrets, undercut her success, all out of jealousy. Sarah was ready for war, But instead, she walked away in silence. No drama, no explosion, just absence. And it haunted her friend, because silence echoes louder than any confrontation. So when betrayal finds you, accept who they really are, not who you hoped they'd be. Don't plead for understanding from someone who chose to ignore your worth. Walk away without a single word. Silence is the one sound that forces reflection. At the end of the day, they didn't just lose you. They lost someone loyal, rare, and real. Let them live with that, not through punishment, but through your absence and your peace. Chapter 3. When you're insulted, insults are cheap. That's why the weak use them. Sarcasm, passive aggression, verbal jabs. Not meant to reveal truth, but to provoke a reaction. Because your reaction is their validation. And once you fire back, you've already given them what they came for. Control. Here's the part most people miss. You don't need to win the argument. You just need not to enter it. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When someone insults you, they want to drag you into the mud. But a Stoic doesn't wrestle in dirt. He remains still, unbothered, composed. Let me tell you a story. There was a man, David, promoted at work, celebrated at a company event. A jealous coworker mocked him in front of everyone. "I guess they give promotions to just anyone now." All eyes turned to David, waiting for the comeback. But David didn't respond. He smiled, stayed silent, and said, "Nothing." In that moment, David didn't just win the room, he won the war. So when you're insulted, see the bait. They're not seeking truth. They want to rattle you. Let your stillness speak. Unshaken tone, calm face, message received, hold your frame. Self-respect doesn't argue, because the most devastating response to an insult isn't rage, it's indifference. Chapter 4. When they play the victim. Some people don't want resolution. They want attention. They rewrite the story, edit out their faults, shed tears, and suddenly, you're the villain. And the more you defend yourself, the worse it gets. Now you're the aggressor, and they're just the poor, misunderstood soul. This isn't a conflict, it's theater. And you've just been cast as the enemy. Stoic wisdom warns us about these people. Epictetus said, "To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate." Victim players don't seek solutions. They seek sympathy. If you try to explain, you feed their script. The only winning move is silence. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, Rachel. She worked with someone who constantly twisted reality. Every time she was held accountable, she cried, deflected, and played the victim. Rachel saw the trap. Instead of reacting, she stayed quiet. And in her silence, the performance collapsed. Because even the best actors lose the spotlight when the audience walks away. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them act. You don't need to participate in their story. You're writing your own. And in that story, silence isn't surrender. It's sovereignty. In a world that demands noise, choose silence. In a world that demands reaction, choose restraint. And in a world full of chaos, choose stoic strength. If this message resonated with you, don't just watch, walk the path. Subscribe to Stoic Trench and join a community that values wisdom, discipline, and inner power. Remember, true power doesn't shout, it endures. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and stay silent.